Welcome to Lecture 7 in a series of 8 on management and the business environment. In this lecture we'll be looking specifically at economic contributions to corporate strategies. In the previous lecture we looked at economic contributions to business unit strategies, the idea of a strategic business unit as the part of a company that operates in a single market. In this case we're looking at how a company might actually manage a portfolio of products or strategic business units operating in a different variety of markets. That could be different products, it could be different geographical locations, it could even be different segments of the market offering a low priced product, perhaps like Tesco Value, alongside a high priced product, perhaps like Tesco Finest. So in many ways what we're trying to decide is where to compete. By that we can mean, like I said, geographically, or we can mean by segmenting the market and deciding in which areas we compete. It may well be that we have different strategies for different areas. We may decide to defend in one area where we just want to generate some cash, or we want to maintain market share, and we may decide to attack in other areas through perhaps cutting prices, where that may cost us money, but it may allow us to build market share in that particular area. It may even be that in certain areas we retreat, either abandoning a product or letting a product float, i.e. offering it no marketing support, but providing what the market will buy without advertising, etc. This can actually generate in certain commodities a large amount of money. An example we used throughout the seminars was, of course, the desktop PC, which is now mostly purchased by large organisations purely on price, unlike tablets, which are all purchased on fancy gimmicks alongside price, alongside software that's offered, alongside apps availability, etc. So the agenda for this lecture, which will come in 4 parts, we'll look at corporate level strategy, what it is. We've already had some discussion of that. We'll look at performance drivers, and the main ones we'll look at are economies of scale, the growth share matrix, portfolio management. This is the Boston Consulting Group matrix. And we'll look at economies of scope. This will lead us to consider things about the core competences of the corporation and why a company should like to concentrate on certain core competences and how it can build on those core competences to develop itself and to grow. So let's be clear about what we mean by corporate level strategy. Previously we were looking at the lower end of this map, the one that is outside the borderline shape, and that was the businesses. They were the strategic business units. We're now looking at the role of the corporate parent, if you like, the centre, and maybe control of the divisions that divide up its businesses into certain sectors. For instance, a company may have certain core competences that mean that businesses should be grouped together into certain divisions because they might share interests. For instance, they might have a variety of consumer products that are marketed in the same way, while also having some industrial products or some raw material products, depending on how diversified the multi-business organisation is. The format we're talking about here, of course, is the M form, which we have mentioned before, as argued for by Chandler. So what are the decisions to be made? There are basically 2 decisions. One is composition, and this is quite simple. What business should the corporation actually be in? Where should it expand? Where should it retreat? Where should it hold steady? Are there areas that it could do with making purchase of other new SBUs? Are there SBUs that should be abandoned? Etc. This in itself can be a difficult complication. It can also be a case of balancing what we will see in future and call their core competencies, which simply means things that the business are good at. For instance, marketing, packaging. Like Amazon, it could simply be delivery. That's been so successful for the company that actually often delivers other people's products now. And it also, of course, consists of coordination. How should the corporate HQ actually manage this array of SBUs? Does it allow them more independence? Does it allow them to be geographically controlled? Does it divide them into divisions around certain core competences? Among the key issues that face the corporation, the idea of a directional strategy where the company decides what it provides and what it operates in are those that give itself growth, stability and retrenchment. The 3 areas that we talked about before. It can decide what markets or what industry competes in. This is often seen as two strategies. One is it could be a portfolio strategy, i.e. where you have a mix of products that may offer no actual joint product, no joint marketing facility, nothing that actually links the two together, such as the use of similar raw materials or similar production techniques, but simply cover for one another so that when one is making money, the other may not be making money. Against a core competency strategy, when you decide what is it that we are particularly good at, and then concentrating purely in that area. Or a parenting strategy. One is a parenting strategy is where you simply allow strategic business units to run whatever product it is they have, but the coordinating activities, the resource control, all these things are done at a higher level. The idea that corporate headquarters is actually playing a parent, and it deals with various lines of business for its children. So it gives the children an allowance to say spend on marketing, or it allows them how much they'll be allowed to expand, how much machine they'll be allowed to do, how many people they'll be allowed to recruit. So the corporate actually simply sets this sort of resource limits and lets the strategic business unit get on with doing its job. One of the things we'll be looking at, of course, is whether the ideas of backward or forward vertical integration. This means that a corporate parent may decide to add within one of its divisions those areas that supply raw materials to it, or it may decide to add to its divisions those that end product retailers. Some companies already own across the whole line. For instance, some car manufacturers offer franchise deals for its retailers. This allows it to control the dealers. Rather than the dealers being completely independent, it may decide that actually it wants to manage, not own directly often, but to franchise, have certain controls over the dealers. Or it used to be the same with breweries that produce beer, though the government has actually stepped in and reduced the number of pubs that a brewery can own. There's still quite a number of what we call tied houses, where the person owns the pub, maybe own the building, but has to actually agree to buy a certain amount of beer and agree to certain rules that are set by the brewery. Or it could be something moving back into raw materials. Many petroleum manufacturers and oil refinery owners have decided that it's best if also they own the wells, therefore to make sure they always have a supply of petroleum even in times of shortage. Because obviously if there's a shortage of oil, then companies that actually own their own wells will get first preference to the oil that's produced by those wells. So basically looking at the way can it expand, what we've just looked at is vertical integration, forward or backwards along the supply chain, but there is also horizontal integration. The horizontal integration is where you might take the same product or market. So for instance, car manufacturers often merged, airlines have often merged. This is horizontal integration, simply taking up more of the same. The final way that corporate level strategy can run, of course, is through diversification and multinationalisation. Effectively, this could be that simply buying a completely different product. So you see something that looks profitable, you tend to think, oh, we're good managers, let's buy into that product. Do that, and they sort of take it over and they can run it. Or multinationalisation, where you'll say, actually, yes, we are a coffee house in America, but we can probably sell as much coffee in Europe or maybe even in China as we do over here. So you often see companies taking their products and moving to multinational markets. So it's another format. Sometimes the multinational market require very different products. For instance, McDonald's beef burgers are lamb burgers in India.